Welcome to the Business Leadership Series, where we engage with leaders who are making an impact on their worlds and who want to share their knowledge and experience for your personal and professional growth. The following interview is designed to inspire you to become the best leader you can be. Your host, Derek Champagne, is the founder and CEO of The Artist Evolution, a full-service agency building successful brands, marketing tools, and campaigns, and also the author of the best-selling book, Don't Buy a Duck. And now, let's begin today's Leadership Series interview.
Welcome to the Business Leadership Series, where our goal is to inspire you to become the best leader that you can be. We've got Peter Winick with us today. He is the founder and CEO of Thought Leadership Leverage. Peter, welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me.
We talk about thought leadership a lot with our agency, with this podcast. You help thought leaders to actually develop their foundational ideas into thriving businesses. And you're an entrepreneurial-minded director who leverages the power of internal and external relationships, accelerating the growth of aspiring thought leaders and exponentially increasing the value of their intellectual property. Tell us a little bit about your background and then kind of what got you to the position that you're in today of helping thought leaders.
Sure. So, I guess my background, I would say earlier in my career, well, probably still the same, very entrepreneurial. So always starting businesses, growing businesses, selling businesses, that kind of thing. And then simultaneously, there was a parallel track that I thought was unrelated for a long period of time, where I was just a content junkie, right? Just reading a lot of business books, and way back in the day when there were, really big, thick magazines. If you're under 30, Google Word magazine, right? Fortune and I mean, those Fortune and Forbes and those things still exist today, but Fast Company and all that kind of stuff. Right. And was always just couldn't get it in fast enough in terms of reading it and understanding it. And because I was in various businesses for myself, had an opportunity to experiment, right? So you read something on leadership or sales or whatever, and you say, I got this little laboratory called my company. Let me go try that out. And so that's those two paths intersected or converged about 15 years ago, 12 years ago, something like that, when I was brought in to be a chief operating officer at a boutique consulting firm for startups and small businesses. And then I did a turnaround for a presentation skills company, which is where I really learned the business side of the content business and realized that I already had some of the business chops. I really love content. Like, hey, this is sort of a cool chocolate and peanut butter for me. And here we are. Very cool. So walk us through that a little bit. Tell us about some of the steps. I mean, let's talk about what you do with Thought Leadership Leveragers. What does that mean? What are you doing for thought leaders? Sure. So there's four categories or four buckets that the things that we do fall into for our clients. So number one is strategy, and that to me is critical, because oftentimes what I find are you've got incredibly smart thought leaders, incredibly successful thought leaders, but when you ask them about their business strategy, they don't always have one. Right. And I find that odd because if you walk into your local community and talk to the guy with just opened a local bakery, he's got a business strategy. Right. You're brilliant and you were a CEO somewhere and you don't. And what I've come to realize is I think part of that is due to the fact that most folks that wind up sort of in the content thought leadership space, it wasn't necessarily planned or by design. Something happened. They something took off, or this was sort of something they did while they were doing something else, and then whatever. But it wasn't like a concerted effort there. So anyway, strategy is a big piece of what we do. Second piece of what we do is developments of brand and platforms to support the author and the thought leader. Third piece is the development and the production of a wide range of products, offerings, solutions, and services that are derived from our clients' intellectual property, methodologies, content, etc. And then the last thing I do, I think it's a big differentiator for us, is the monetization of that content. So the sales, the marketing, the business development. And one of our clients said to us several years ago, it's like, you guys take it from the back of an envelope to the back of a check. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of cool, sort of full service. Wow, very cool. So tell us a little about, for our listeners, who is for those that are thought leaders out there. I put myself in that category. I did one book.
So yeah, I can relate to that, not knowing what the direction is, or, we've got a day job and we arrived at some of this thought leadership title or platform because of the other things that we're doing, and it kind of fell in our lap, or we enjoyed it. But what give us some steps to be intentional, or talk to our listeners out there how might they know that they need to maybe go work on a strategy and have more intent in what they're doing with their thought leadership?
Well, I mean, I think the short answer to that is if it's something that you're serious about and it's something that you'd like to either take to the next level or dive into that space or increase what you're doing, and success for different people means different things. It could mean how many people I touch with my content because I believe it makes their lives better. It could mean how much money I'm putting in through the system. It could mean how often I get to practice what I preach and do what I love and be up on stage and sort of the ego gratification that comes with that, developing content, research, etc. So I think if you're serious about it, I don't know why you wouldn't want to operate with the strategy. It's sort of like, if you're going to go for a swim, you probably don't want to do it with an anchor. And I think doing this without a strategy is kind of the equivalent.
Great. So let's take a step back for a minute. We didn't talk about what thought leadership even means. So why don't you give us a definition of what thought leadership is? Yeah,
no, that's a great question. So I think there are two. Well, so here's the world according to me, and you can agree or disagree, whatever. There's two components to that, right? So there's thought and there's leadership. So the opposite would be sort of thoughtless followership. And I think, quite frankly, what I see too much of on the web and books that are published and things is actually thoughtless followership. What do I mean by that? So number one, thought. Is it really thoughtful? Is it really something that's not just a tweet or a statement of the obvious? But have you put the thoughtfulness and the energy and the effort and the research and such into it so that it's something that you're proud of and it's something that you're adding to the conversation and you're taking a discipline, whether that's sales or leadership or marketing or management or whatever, to a better place. So I think thoughtfulness is key, and a lot of people are lazy, and we live in the cut and paste world and whatever. But thoughtfulness takes work and effort and energy, and some people have it, and some don't.
Right.
And it's pretty obvious the latter category when you look at what they've done. And then the leadership thing is the other side of that. If you're just repeating what you've heard, what you've seen, what you've read, that's okay. That's called curation. That's not called thought leadership, right? So what are you doing to add to the conversation? We are incredibly fortunate that we live in the time that we do because we've got more information coming at us in various modalities at 100 miles an hour today. And it's not the scarcity of information that is the issue. It's the filtering of the signal to the noise, right? And there's just so much noise out there. Right. So be thoughtful and lead in the space or the domain that you're an expert in. That's great advice. Yeah, and it seems like everybody's got a microphone and a channel now. And every time we have an agency here, but every time I log into Facebook or LinkedIn or anything else, I see 100 new experts, and they might be, and they're all pushing me into their drip campaign, to the landing pages, and it does seem like a lot of noise out there. So, any other advice for someone who's a leader in their industry? I couldn't agree with you more. Do the deep work for that thing that you're knowledgeable on, and don't just curate. And there is a tendency sometimes to do that because you want to get things out there fast, and it needs to be something that's clickable. But even with the clickbait and all the other things that we have, I've seen some thought leaders get a little bit shy about even putting stuff out there. What other advice do you have for someone that does have quality information to share? Any other advice on what platforms they should use or what they should be doing? Yeah, so there's a lot in that question. So number one, if you're truly a thought leader or aspire to move in that direction, I think it's incredibly, because of the volume and the noise out there today, to be really, really good at that today takes a lot of energy and effort. Right. And I think if that's the lane you're choosing, then stay there. Meaning, don't try to be a thought leader and simultaneously a Twitter expert, a social media guru, this, that, and the other thing. Stick to what you do and surround yourself with other folks that are experts in the various things. So that would be my first answer to your question. The second piece, when you asked about platforms and things to put on, that's a tactical question. And I think what happens is people get drawn into or enamored with all the social media stuff. And social media needs to be used intelligently in support of a strategy that has clearly identified objectives and goals. And a lot of times people just go at it and like, oh, this week I'm read some articles on Twitter and I'm going to be Twittering 17 times a day. And then next week, oh, there's this thing called Instagram. And it's just a lot of spinning plates. And what you want to be is an orchestra conductor. Everything has to be in harmony to meet the business goals.
Great advice. Thanks for sharing that. So keep walking us through. Give us some more advice. I love what you're sharing here. Talk about you talk about book contents as well, but about maximizing your book in every possible way. But I would imagine that applies to other deep, meaningful works of content as well.
Yeah. So I think it's important to be not just in this business, but in any business, in any business, but self-aware and introspective. So I'll give you a couple examples of that. Most people have a content consumption preference, right? So we might, we meaning people over 40, that's me, right? Might say, oh, those millennials or whatever, all they do is take information in on video. Okay, well, that's fine. That's their preference. There's nothing wrong with that. Some folks might prefer to read academic journals, really lengthy articles, big bibliographies and everything's validated and all that. Other folks might prefer to take in information in the form of an infographic. And it's not that one's better than another, but it's about having an understanding of saying, wait a minute, if people prefer to consume things in different ways, what about me? So if I prefer one way, that means that's probably my preferred method to create content. So if I like to write, I'm a writer, right? Maybe I like to write 500-word blogs. Maybe that's my sweet spot. So I'll pound those out all day and night, whatever. Now I've just, eliminated unnecessarily a whole other, segments of the population that might only like video or infographics or longer form articles. So how do I take my stuff and port it over into those modalities in ways that make it relevant to multiple types of people that have different consumption preferences? So
are you basically taking your content and you're basically repackaging it different ways to make it relevant and digestible to some other audiences that you would alienate otherwise because they don't prefer that specific platform?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think that what happens is most thought leaders are inherently creative types, right? They might not be Picasso, but they're creatives, right? They like to do things, like to build things, like to create things, like to experiment, whatever. And when you give them free time or when they take the time away from other things that they're doing, that's their favorite activity, right? That's what they want to be doing more of, not accounting or finance or marketing, whatever. That's their thing, right? However, unlike most other businesses, you don't get to build new asset. In most other businesses, you don't get to build the next asset until you've gotten a return on the first asset or the second asset, right? So if you were in the real estate business and you really loved designing homes or apartments, but you weren't so keen on selling or renting them, you would go broke very quickly, right? So that would not be a sustainable venture where you built thousands and thousands and thousands of apartments and never got around to renting them. Eventually that would blow up pretty quickly. In this space, you can continue to put stuff out there new without sort of squeezing the juice out of the lemons, right? And you have to monitor the data that says, wait a minute, this thing that I wrote, 4 months ago, that's sort of taken off. Like, what is that telling me? It's an indication that you've tapped into something. And okay, well, let's repurpose that a little bit. Let's turn that into a video. Let's try something else with it and see what happens next. And I think there's a discipline and a structure to that for some that makes them uncomfortable. They don't. I just want to create. I want to go into the quote studio and do my thing.
What is the fare on that? Is it being boxed in? Is it because it is? I mean, a lot of people that are doing the writing and the thought leadership, you're so right. They would rather kind of hole up and work on that than jump into an accounting when they have a little bit of spare time. It just seems so much more fulfilling and productive. What are you finding there to be the objections to that? Is it worried about the response they're going to get, or is it more about having to jump into a structure that forces them to create a certain quantities and et cetera?
Well, I think it's an inherent discomfort with the blending of the creative right brain sort of flow, if you will, with the left brain business analytics stuff. And don't forget,
right.
Lots and lots of my clients are academics and CEOs of publicly traded companies. These are smart people that have the business chops. It's not like we're talking about, somebody that owns a pottery studio that might not have that gravitas, right?
Right.
So they move into the creative space and they sort of forget that, yeah, I could run a balance sheet of $3 billion. Okay, well, why aren't you, looking at the things that you're creating and monitoring them? So that would be one, is that you have to add that level of discipline and rigor on top of a creative process. It shouldn't constrain you. Be creative. Put stuff out there. Some stuff's going to stink and some stuff's going to be great. Right. But go back and look at it and see, well, what's really resonating with the audience I'm trying to connect with? And then give them more of that, or give them that with a little bit of a twist.
That's great. So tell me, you talk about one of the topics you teach on is how everyday ideas can become extraordinary business practices. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I think that you have to understand, again, the world according to me, so if it's wrong, switch channels, whatever, is that I think the content business is really simple, meaning what does it take to be successful? What it takes to be successful is that as a result of someone or someone's, right, being exposed to your work in whatever format that is, that could be a book, a speech, video, digital, whatever, right? There is a behavior change or some sort of change that happens at an individual level that in the aggregate, it happens to a lot of people in an organization, moves a business lever that's measurable. That's it. And a lot of times we don't, I've seen a zillion people that are sort of the sales space, which you'd think would be so obvious that, if I'm going to spend, if I'm big company X, I'm going to spend $1 million on sales training, I better get back some multiple of that $1 million. I didn't do it for your charm or your looks or your catchy phrases, right? What are you doing to change the behaviors that drive a business result? Right. And oftentimes we don't think about what we do in terms of what we need to do to satisfy the buyer, which may be different than the user, right? So somebody that reads the book may be a different person than the person at, a Citibank or a GE or an IBM or whatever that's buying content in mass to deploy across an enterprise.
Yeah, that makes sense. So talk to us about the current state of the content business. You talk about where we are now. Again, we talked a little bit about the noise, but give us an update from your perspective.
Yeah, so to me, it's a tale of two cities, right? So it's the best of times and the worst of times. So the worst of times are publishing and to a much lesser extent speaking. So publishing as a business is in big trouble. And there's going to be some major shifts. There already have been, and there will continue to be, figuring out various business models, et cetera. So the old school model, and when I say old, I'm talking 10 years ago, of a decent, not even a rock star thought leader, but a good, better than average thought leader can push a book out every 18 months, get some sort of an advance that's actually not an insult, that would actually fairly or somewhat adequately compensate them for the time they spent creating the book, right? Do it every 18 months and then go out sort of and speak. They can make a pretty good living. Where we are today is that model no longer is one that will work in and of itself. Right. So here's the best of times. So now that we depressed everyone, let's bring them back to life. The best of times is there's never been more opportunity to make a living, deploy, scale, leverage, monetize, et cetera, your content in many ways globally. Whether that's converting it into assessment tools, video-based learning systems, licensing your content, all sorts of digital solutions, apps, whatever. There's so many cool things that you can do with it that it's almost overwhelming. So the sort of trick here is the old model of I'm an author, speaker, whatever, which means I write books and I speak. Most people can understand the business models underneath that pretty quickly. More book sales is better than less. Speaking more is better than speaking less, right? In this new world, those same people don't have the wherewithal or the skill set to take content in a validated way and convert it into an assessment tool that a large organization would buy, or produce a video-based training system that meets the standards of the market. So all those things are sort of foreign territory. So what you need to do is you need to find people that can help you navigate those waters. Again, stick to your knitting. Be the best at what you do from a content development and research and such perspective. But you're not going to simultaneously be able to do that and be best in class in terms of building out that content in 7 modalities that require a wide variety of skill sets.
Anything else you want to share on the content side or on thought leadership? And then I want to ask you some other questions about you as an entrepreneur as well.
I mean, anything else I'd share on content or thought leadership is I can tell you that it's a little bit, well, actually, it's harder and harder to get in, in the door. But I can tell you from my experience doing this for a long time with lots and lots of clients, I don't think there's any more satisfying thing to do, right? In other than to be in a business where your expertise is acknowledged by those that matter. You're putting content out into the world that makes a difference. You're making a great living doing it, and you're loving, the things that you're doing along the way. I mean, it doesn't really think about, the job of a keynote speaker. Most people don't go to work every day for 60 minutes in a 5-star hotel and get people to give them a standing ovation at the end of the day. Right?
Sounds pretty good.
Right? It doesn't sound right. Most people are, grinding it through doing PowerPoints, and a standing ovation is only 2 people fell asleep in the meeting.
Right. That's great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Hey, let's take a couple more minutes. I just want to dig in a little bit more. Tell me, as you being an entrepreneur, as you've been and being successful as you have been, tell me a little bit about what's your proudest moment that you've had personally and professionally?
So let's start with professionally, there have been many, and there continue to be many, almost on a weekly basis. And I would say I'd speak on behalf of us as a company. Really enjoy when we take something from a concept and help a thought leader shape that, and then fast forward some period of time and a lot of work and a lot of energy, et cetera, 6 months, a year later, and see that is actually installed and thousands or tens of thousands of people are using that at several clients' organizations, and the results are coming in. That's really cool. That could be, my name's Peter and I'm a nerd. That's fine. I'm down with that. But we love that. And we love seeing our clients who are really, really smart get to the next level and get their stuff out there. And, most of them listen, everybody likes to make more money is better than less. But they really want to unleash the innate power of their various streams of content has into the world.
That does sound satisfying. Definitely does. So how do you define success? What does it look like for you?
For me personally,
yes,
it's continuing to do what I love, continuing to work with people that love what they do, and watching the team grow and watching our clients be happy and it's kind of fun.
That's great. I see a theme. You like to build these campaigns and build these things for clients and see them get results, and that's satisfying to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. That's great. That means you definitely love what you do. So, what's your best piece of entrepreneurial advice that you could share with our audience?
Don't be stupid. No, I'm kidding.
Well, other than that, I think we're all gonna make a few mistakes. But
yeah, the best piece of entrepreneurial advice is. Again, I'll go back to a little bit of the, be self-aware and be introspective, right? So you might be great at a couple of things. You're not awesome at everything. Don't kid yourself, right? So I know, me personally, I am awful at detail-oriented things. Can I do it? Sure. Does anybody want to be around me when I'm doing it? No, including me. So, there was a point in my career I just had to sort of suck it up and do it. Now it's better for me, it's better for the company, and it's better for the clients that we serve, that I don't go anywhere near that. And doesn't mean, and I have the utmost respect for processes and detail and systems and all that kind of stuff. It's just not where, I'm best suited to be the one on the implementation side of that.
So what have you yet to accomplish on your list, your wish list, your bucket list? That's something that you want to do soon.
Well, that's a great question. What haven't we accomplished? What haven't I accomplished? We are doing some things now where we are shifting some of the business model a little bit to getting into the what I would call the content publishing space, not book publishing space. So don't worry, McGraw-Hill, you got your own problems. Where we are curating some really, really interesting content and getting out into the world, this intersection of where the theoretical and the applied meet, and being able to have control over what we want to produce, how we want to produce, the quality, the messaging, the languaging, and then how we get that out into the market. So moving, we love the consulting. I mean, we're ultimately a professional services firm, but moving into some digital solutions and things of that nature that are high quality. Because, unfortunately, if I didn't have any standards, we could have already made boatloads and boatloads and boatloads of money in the digital content space. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people that are doing that, this stuff doesn't work, right? You can't eat cookies all day and lose weight. You can't get rich on $1 a day. You can't, I'm kind of old school. We like the stuff that we're standing behind and developing to actually do what it says it does, which is a little retro. So.
Well, absolutely. And I share the same philosophy, and we share that with clients and others, is our ability to scale has not been as fast as if we were to compromise the quality of our product. Now, does it mean there's some lessons we could have learned along the way to be more efficient? I'm sure. But the type of service that we offer, we also need to make sure that we're delivering as promised. And that's not always something you can just take to mass market and scale without consequence.
Yeah, consequence or compromise to the efficacy of the messaging and the work.
Absolutely. So tell me about, we don't like to focus on it, but we like to sometimes ask our guests about how they've dealt with some failures or challenges or setbacks. And when I've been on podcasts, it seems like I often get asked what my failures have been. And I don't want to know that for you, but I'd like to know, how do you, when you've had setbacks for yourself or for your clients, what do you do? What is some advice you have that helps you recover, put it in perspective, and then grow from it?
Yeah, great question. So you're going to have setbacks. If you don't have setbacks, you're either arrogant, you're not listening, or whatever. So a couple of things there. One thing that we do is at certain critical steps along the way of developing solutions for our clients and for ourselves, we'll stop and do a pre-mortem. We're going to say, okay, right now, given what we know, why is this going to be a miserable failure? And not just what we think, we will engage others in that process to say, okay, here's what we're doing. Here's the thinking behind it, right? Here's how we're doing it. Tell me how this would fail or why this is going to fail. And then give people, the permission to say, be brutally honest. We need people to look at us and go, wow, your kid has really, really big ears. Like, that's a funny looking kid. Right. That's what we're hoping for. And I think a lot of times what happens is you get enamored. We confuse passion with being enamored, and it dulls our senses. To say, wait, just because I think this is the coolest thing ever, it doesn't matter what I think. What does the market think, right? So, failures are going to happen, but I think that many failures, the scale or the scope of the failure could have been lessened if there was listening earlier on in the process. You're never going to eliminate failure, right? But you can. I'd rather kill something that I invested $50,000 in than kill something that I invested $500,000 in. It's a lot less painful. It's
great advice, and it's you're right. It's a good lesson, but you've got to have thick skin to be able to hear what your customers, what the market, what people around you are saying. And so, if you're willing to have thick skin and learn, you can iterate before you have bigger failures. That's great advice.
Well, I'd rather have thick skin than a thin balance sheet. So.
I'm telling you, it's great. I've learned that the hard way. I mean, our pride sometimes as creators and as artists, as entrepreneurs, we sometimes have some blind. We don't know what we don't know, and we get really excited about our product with blinders on. And so I love that. You're so right. I'd rather have thick skin than a thin bank account. I love that advice. So with all the things that you have going on, how do you maintain focus?
Yeah. How do I maintain focus? I mean, the way I maintain focus is I know, and I think everyone on the team knows, what they're best at and what they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing. And I actually spend a good chunk of time going, did I really need to do that? Did I really need to be on that call? And I think just questioning what you're doing and if it's not something that you're really good at that's adding value, why are you doing it? Can someone else do it? Or does it not even need to be done anymore? I mean, how many meetings do many of us sit through where there's a dozen people in the meeting, but there's really only 4 that need to be there and everybody knows it?
Right.
And the cool thing about being on the entrepreneurial side versus being on the Fortune 1000 side, politically, if you're in a large company, I need to be there and show my face and all that kind of stuff. It's like we don't need to do that, right? Our objective is to drive results, and we're sensitive to people's feelings and such. But everyone's got permission to say, you know what, I don't think I'm adding value to this meeting. I thought it was going to be something else. I'm going to check out now. It's like, okay, cool, go do something else that's more fun or adding more value to the business.
That's great. Just a couple more questions for you. Share with us some either new technology or resource or learning tool that you're excited about that's helped you recently in your business.
Oh, there's so many. I mean, so we are a virtual company. I mean, we're actually a real company, but we work remotely.
Got you.
So we've got a team of 9. I don't think there's any city where we have 2 people. So we are dependent on every form of technology, be that, we would be in a lot of pain without Dropbox. We'd be in a lot of pain without the Google tools. The ability to collaborate, you and I are talking on Skype now. There's Zoom, there's WebEx, there's Adobe Connect. I mean, I don't think location matters anymore. And I don't think time of day matters anymore. If you're allowing those to be a hurdle, you're at a huge disadvantage competitively.
Great. What's a recent book or content piece that you've consumed that's made an impact on you?
Oh, there's a lot. I mean, that's like asking me which is my favorite kid, because all I do is
pick one for us. What's a website? What's a book? What's something you've read recently that's made an impact on you?
Website, book. Well, I'm trying not to pitch client stuff specifically. I actually, and you probably won't believe this, but I literally read 2 to 3 business books a week.
Wow.
And, every now and then I'll say, God, I haven't read anything that's not a business book in a while. So I'll read like some ridiculously long biography. So last month I actually read War and Peace.
Nice. Okay. That's great.
I think I did that since I was in college, which was when War and Peace was being written, it feels like. But and it was good. It's clearly not a light read, and it's easier to physically hold it on Kindle than in your hands.
Right.
But it's a challenge for me to go. And I guess my point there is get outside your zone. We all tend to get in a rut, and you can extrapolate from other disciplines.
Yeah, that's great advice. I'm in a mastermind group where we read through a book a month, and
Yep.
Then several other people have books that you read through that are in the groups or outside the groups and visitors, and that bring them on the podcast. And so, sometimes I get overloaded with so many good things directly related to my industry and being a leader that it's almost overload sometimes. And so to step out and read a fiction or read a biography or enjoy something from another discipline can be refreshing sometimes.
Yeah, historical biographies are great in terms of when you understand in context. Because when we're in grade school, you learn the bullet points of Abraham Lincoln or whatever, and look what they've done even just from a theater standpoint with Hamilton.
Right.
Wow, that's really cool. It sort of relates to so many things that we're experiencing today.
Love it. And Peter, thank you so much for being our guest. I love what you're doing with thought leadership and with helping leaders take it to the next level and building a strategy and platforms and monetizing and matching with what their goals and objectives are. How can our listeners learn more about you?
Yeah, so the best place would be the website, which is thoughtleadershipleverage.com. And then I'm on all the usual places. Twitter is @Peter Winick. LinkedIn, we have a page. Facebook, we have a company page. YouTube channel, there's a lot of videos with some good information on there. But the best place is probably the website.
Awesome. Thoughtleadershipleverage.com. In our show notes, we'll also put the other ways to contact and reach out to you. Any final words you want to share with us today?
The only final words I would say that, where this business is no different than any other is it takes hard work, effort, discipline, strategy, structure. There's no magic to this. There's no overnight success. People have this delusion of, if I can only do a TED talk like Simon Sinek or something like that, I'll be an overnight success.
Right.
Serendipity is not a strategy.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Peter. Thanks for being our guest. We look forward to looking up what you're doing and to learning more and following what's going on in your career. So take care and thank you again.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to the Business Leadership Series, where we engage with leaders who are making an impact on their worlds and who want to share their knowledge and experience for your personal and professional growth. This interview was designed to inspire you to become the best leader you can be.